It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk. It makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. It's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds and the ink stains that have dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory. That keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the rocks and ivy painted on their columns now that bind me. Or something that somebody said because they thought we fit together walking. It's not knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving when I walk around the railroad track and find that you're moving on the back roads by the rivers of my memory, and hours you're just gentle on my mind. Though the wheat fields and the clotheslines and the junkyards and the highways come between us, and some other woman's crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone, I still might run in silence, tears of joy might stain my face, and the summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you walking on the back roads by the rivers flowing gentle on my mind. I dip my cup of soup back from a gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard. My beard a rustling towel and a dirty hat pulled low across my face. Through cup hands round the tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waiting from the back roads by the rivers of my memories, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind.
And a good Monday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you on this Monday night, the 5th day of February 2024. We are grateful to have this guy back with us tonight. He is on the phone with me, back from the dead. Eric Caron, SwitchedOnLife.com. Eric, good to see you, buddy. Good to have you on the show tonight. We got a lot to talk about, and always a pleasure, my friend. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me. And gee, man, I didn't know you could sing so well. That song, I got to get that. I got to get that CD.
Well, I'll be sure to put your order in, and I will add a 16.5% gratuity tax to your order, and you'll have to buy me a thing of clam chowder to get that copy, okay? So, well, thank you for the compliment coming from you. I mean, you're a big author, you know, so yeah, that's sort of thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. I didn't even know you noticed that. That's good.
It's good to be back. You know, I just got back from Switzerland. I was in Davos for a week, and then I went on to South Africa for a week. In both security-related projects, and it's always good to be back here in America.
Yeah,
but,
you want to talk about?
As we know right now, things aren't looking so so good for America right now.
No, they're not, buddy. Would you want to talk about Davos and things? Anything happen over there while you were there?
Well, I was there on a security project, and so I can't really discuss what I was doing, but I was with a client or two. But it was interesting in that, yes, I mean, it's where, as you can imagine, it's been talked about, governments and businesses kind of come together and really establish, contracts, be it precious minerals or water or what have you. So it was I've never been to Davos. It was beautiful. So yeah, that was interesting. And then on to South Africa to work on a wildlife trafficking project. And that's coming along as well.
Okay.
And I'm back. I'm back here in America, and I see things aren't any better.
No.
Than how I left it.
No, buddy. Look, we're in a dangerous time. That's why we got you on tonight. We've had over 160 attacks, and maybe more than that. The latest number I had was 160, but I think there's probably more missile attacks on our troops, Eric, in the Mediterranean and the Middle East, and a lot of these weapons have come from Yemen, the Houthis, but it's not the Houthis that really we should be concerned about. It's the source of those weapons, and that's Iran. And all Yemen is doing is acting as their proxy tonight, and they're trying to draw us into this war with them, I think. And I know that, I remember we were talking about this today, me and you, and you have been sounding this alarm ever since the day I met you, and we met about 4 years ago now, 5. It's actually going on 5 because I met you in 2019 at CPAC, and it's hard to believe we've known each other that long, and you've been a dear friend. But I remember the very first time you ever came on my network back then, you said that you felt like Iran was the greatest threat to our nation, and that was even bigger than China or Russia or any of the other major players on the world stage, that you felt like Iran posed a great threat. And she's definitely posing a threat to Israel in the Middle East, buddy. But look, you got to be concerned that without the leadership that we need to have in D.C., and you've got a Department of Defense head, and look, I don't wish the man any harm regarding his cancer, but you can't even get a Department of Defense secretary to tell his boss that he's been in the hospital for 3 weeks with cancer treatments that he could have died from, and then we're trying to believe that we're safe tonight from a mortal enemy that wants to drive Israel into the sea and get a nuke and nuke America and half the world with it. I mean, it doesn't gender a lot of warm and fuzzies that we're safe, does it?
No, it sure doesn't. I mean, we certainly. And it pains me to say this, but we're certainly a dysfunctional government, and our CEO, if you will, is not operating in all cylinders. It's you and I've said it for years, and each day it gets worse, and it's very concerning because exactly what you said is that we have wars going on all around us throughout, through the globe. I mean, we have the Middle East is on fire with Israel and Hamas and the West Bank. We're also in this kind of shadow war with Iran.
Yes, we are, buddy.
And then we have Europe with Russia and Ukraine, and then we have Africa with 21 shadow wars going on in Africa. Now, some of the listeners may recall this. Just early this month, first week of January, we lost 2 heroes, 2 Navy SEALs in off the coast of Somalia, who were boarding a vessel with alleged weapons on it from Yemen, and these 2 brave SEALs died. So we are in the second inning of a World War III. Our administration, of course, the White House, I get it. Nobody wants to say World War III, but man, I can talk about it. You can talk about it. I mean, it walks like a duck. It talks like a duck, it's a duck. We have wars throughout the Middle East, in Europe, in Africa, and quite frankly, they weren't there when Donald Trump was president.
No, that's true, buddy. And that's the other thing I want to ask you about tonight. He did his best, Eric, during his 4 years to keep us out of such shadow wars and keep us out of the Middle East. And I'm good.
Yep.
I may go against the grain a little bit what I'm about to say. Look, what happened on October the 7th probably wouldn't have happened to begin with had Trump been in office. But since it has happened, and we've lost 3 servicemen this past week, the 2 ladies and a man, two women and a man, with that attack that hit that barracks in Jordan. Look, if America don't respond to that and respond strong against Iran, it's just going to generate more of our enemies doing this more. And my question to you is, if Eric Caron was in charge tonight, what kind of response do we give to this? Because you walk a fine line. You don't want the Middle East to go up in smoke. But, buddy, I'm going to tell you something. It's already up in smoke. And if we don't strike hard and send a message that this behavior is unacceptable, more servicemen are going to lose their life. And I don't think it's going to stop there. I think they're eventually going to hit us here. And you and I both know this border is wide open, and God knows what's here tonight. God knows what terrorist groups are here. Only God knows what danger we face from within, and with a government that's on the brink of, we don't even know where Joe Biden is half the time, whether he's asleep or whatever. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but Eric, we've got to the point now that we've got no leadership. We've got no protection from domestic enemies, foreign or domestic, right now from D.C., and pretty much it's to each man his own right now, and to protect his family and protect his loved ones. And it's not a good feeling, brother. I can tell you that. But I don't think this would have happened. I'm with you 1,000,000%. Under President Trump, I don't think the event on October the 7th would have happened to begin with, because they would have feared what the United States would have done to stand with Israel. And see, we're not standing with Israel. We're standing with her in name only, but we're betraying and sticking a knife up her back behind the scenes, and it's emboldening our enemies, my friend. Am I right?
100%. The Iranians know, the only thing they know is strength. And when we are not strong, that sends a clear message that we are not serious about protecting our men and women of our military and our interests throughout the world. The Department of Justice, Chris, and anyone can Google this, but early last month, I think it was like second week in January, the Department of Justice announced the arrest or indictment of several individuals here in America. One was an Iranian, and there was a few Hell's Angels. They were coordinating with the Iranian government to kill 2 Iranian dissidents in Maryland. But they were apprehended here in America prior to the killing. I guess I say that only because the Iranian government, they're a state sponsor of terror. They want nuclear weapons. They're responsible for the deaths of hundreds of servicemen in Iraq. We forget all those other the Beirut embassy attack and the killing of our CIA station chief by the Iranians. It goes on and on and on. So the Iranians know nothing but strength, and what we should do. You asked me this question: what should we do if Eric was in charge? We need to cut off the Straits of Hormuz to shipping by the Iranians. We need to blockade.
Right.
We need to and get serious, because we're not on the oil, the Iranian oil. We allow the Iranians to make hundreds of millions of dollars every day, hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, through the oil trade. We need to shut that down. So so financially, we need to shut down the shipping lane for the Iranians. We need to sanction and block any financial transactions here in the U.S. by individuals associated with the government, or second, if you will, somebody who's a company, if you will, company who's expecting payment from the Iranian government, wherever that company is in the world, because a lot of that those transactions come through America. So that's the first step we need to do, is shut down the oil and shut down the financial transactions globally. That's going to send a clear message to the Iranian government.
Let me ask you a question on that, though. If once we do that, does other nations, bigger nations, get involved in the conflict, though? Does that draw Russia's ire? Does it draw China's ire? Does it draw Turkey into this? And I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm with you, because me and you would make a good team, because I would do probably even worse than that. But does this ignite a fire even more? And see, that's what they want, isn't it, Eric? Isn't it? It's what these warmongers want. They want us in these wars. They want this because this is bloodlust. I mean, they just feed on this stuff, do they not?
Well, but Chris, I think we see what happens when we do nothing.
I'll agree. I'll agree with that.
And we see what happens when we allowed Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden for years unfettered access to weapons and technology and training camps. We saw that 19 hijackers took down the globe for weeks, if not months.
Right.
And so, I mean, we have to send a clear message to the Iranian government that attacks on U.S. servicemen will be responded in a severe manner. And what Russia and Turkey does, it's anyone's guess, right? But I think we're in a position that if we don't act now, we will continue to have to deal with the Iranian government. We have to stop playing defense and start playing offense.
Would you agree that a military strike into the heart of Tehran and some military targets there, would that send a message that would get their attention, or do you think that would ignite further escalation?
Well, yeah, I think it would. So that's why I'm saying initially, I would blockade the oil, and so cut off the funding, because we're funding. The U.S. government is allowing the funding of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and their intelligence service and their government through the sale of oil. I mean, oil is one of the major funding mechanisms for the government. Shut that down as best we can. But we, the American government, for the last few years, have not done that. And so let's cut off their funding to the government. So cut off the oil and shut down the banking industry and sanction Iranian and don't allow Iranian officials or their proxies to do business in America or touch our financial institutions. We need to start squeezing, short of declaring war, if you will, against the Iranians. We need to start squeezing them harder, because we're not doing that right now.
My question, the next one, is going to be probably a softball toss, but it may be complicated.
I like softballs.
I know you like softball tosses. That's why you're on the McFiles here, because we got the brain of a kindergartner, right? But does this government have the stomach to do this, Eric? Is there anybody in D.C. right now that is an adult and that they would see this as you see it, or do you think that they're going to appease this bunch and it's going to? Because see, I think appeasement only brings further escalation.
Exactly.
If we appease them, they're going to do this again, and it ain't going to be 3 this time. It's going to be 30, and then 30 turns into 300, and before we know it, brother, we're going to have another 9/11 on steroids in this nation. But is there anybody in this government that you believe has the kahunas and the cojones to stand up to this and do exactly what you just said? Look, I'm with you what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing. But the bigger question in the room is, do we have a government that's going to do that?
No, absolutely not. And so, I mean, a perfect example is Afghanistan.
Yes.
So in December 2023, U.S. engagement with Afghanistan, I was reading through a report by the Special Inspector General for Afghan Reconstruction dated January 30th, 2024. Anybody can go and look it up. Special Inspector General for Afghan Reconstruction, January 30th, 2024. In that report that they issued to Congress, it talks about the U.S. engagement with Afghanistan. In December 2023, we basically normalized our relationship with the Taliban. And here's a quote. The State Department's quoted, this is a quote, to build functional relationships with the Taliban to advance U.S. objectives. And anybody who believes that is going to happen, forget about it. And so you have to understand, and in the same report, Georgetown University highlighted the fact that Afghan ranks as the worst country in the world in terms of a status for women. 80% of girls and women don't go to school. You're not allowed to go to school in Afghanistan. Children are raped and killed. We're looking at thousands, Chris, that were reported in this report were maimed and killed. The Taliban legally defined an adult by signs of puberty rather than age. They got 15,000 madrasas. They have about 34 jihad madrasas. Jihad means war, right?
Right.
Madrasas is a religious school. Jihad madrasas is where you learn to become a suicide bomber.
Wow.
And so I go back. December 2023, U.S. engagement in Afghanistan. The Joe Biden State Department stated it's to build functional relationships with the Taliban to advance U.S. objectives. We've continued to give the Taliban cash, Chris. $3.5 billion. It's unbelievable to me. I mean, since October 21st to December 2023, $11 billion in assistance, Chris.
To Afghanistan?
$11 billion plus. That's what's being reported. You only can imagine what CIA budget's like. That's off the books, if you know what I mean. So we're looking at $11 billion in assistance from October 21st to December 2023.
To a nation that hates us and a nation that's turned its government back over to Islamic extremists that rape and kill women and kill kids and are basically the same bunch that bred the Osama bin Laden attacks on the Trade Center in 9/11. Yep.
And the UN is flying cash into Afghanistan every week. I think the number I read was 80 million every week, cash, pallets.
All right.
And so guess what we're going to have, Chris? I can predict this already, just like you. You know, we all stopped at, in October when we saw how Gaza lit up.
Yes.
And we're wondering where they get all the equipment and money and this and this.
Great question.
The UN was helping them. The Iranians were helping them.
Correct.
And so here we are, similar case in Afghanistan. The United States of America, the UN, is providing billions of dollars of your money to a terrorist organization. You got to be kidding me.
All right, let me ask you a question tonight, because this gets down to where most our listeners are probably sitting here and they're listening to all this and they say, well, we understand this, but how does this come down to our daily, day-to-day lives? How much danger, Eric, is this nation in tonight for that local citizen out there that's just trying to pay their bills, go to the work every day, take their kids to school, make sure their kids are safe at night when they come home? You lay your head down, you pray and hope that your country is here tomorrow when you get up. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you concerned we're on the brink of a major world conflict? And look, you know that's going to involve the United States. Look, we're still, no matter how bad we are, we're not in a good place, but we're still the world's only superpower left. And whatever happens in the world, we're going to be involved in it. We just are, unless we just isolate ourselves. And that's really what led us to World War II, because there was forces in this government that saw the Nazis rising in power, Eric, and they could have stopped them long before they got to the place they were, and we didn't do it because you had forces in government that said we're going to isolate ourselves from the world. And I'm just concerned we're watching history repeat itself, and we can't afford to be isolationists, and we can't afford to be starting wars that we don't need to start. But, buddy, this war was started by them. You said the Shadow War? This war was started by them. We didn't start this.
Yeah. Well, Chris, the situation is such that because of globalization, I think you're basically asking, why should Americans care?
Yes.
They're just busy trying to work. And, Afghanistan's 8,000 miles away, and Africa is about the same distance. Who the hell cares? I gotta go to work and wake up at 6 a.m., do my 12-hour shift or what have you, get home, play baseball, whatever I got to do, and get up and do it all over again and work my butt off for $60,000 a year. Well, here's my response to that, Chris. We should care because of globalization. The world is much, much smaller than it was 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Correct.
So what happens in Afghanistan and Iran and throughout the world, Paris included, has a direct effect on us. So globalization is a good thing in many respects because, we get to buy products from around the world, some good, some not so good. We get to travel, be in Paris with less than a day. But the bad guys and terror organizations and state sponsor of terrorism like Iran and Afghanistan, they like globalization too. Why? Because they exploit the freedoms that we have, and they can very easily exploit trade, travel, telecommunication. The 3 T's, I've mentioned it many times on your show, and I'll continue to mention it. The bad guys, terrorists and state sponsors of terror, will exploit trade, travel, telecommunication, and that's why a shipping container could end up in the port of Boston with a WMD agent in it. Correct. That's why a terrorist can get on a plane in Afghanistan because the Afghan government is issuing passports to terrorists so they can travel to the United States via Paris. Well, that's why, your children are being attacked, if you will, online from bad guys from around the globe. You think you're talking to somebody down the street in Omaha, Nebraska. That's right, you're talking to somebody in Canada.
That's right.
Or pick another country who's trying to lure your 12-year-old out the door one night. So that's why that man in, Omaha, Nebraska, who gets up every day and works his tail off, should care what happens globally.
That's so true, Eric. That is absolutely so true. Let me ask you a question about this border. We've talked about the border numerous times. How does this play into all this? Because I think you would agree with me. I don't think you'd get any disagreement that we've got some bad cojones that have come across that border, buddy. Just in the last since October, the numbers are staggering. Since October fiscal year, basically 2024, which started September the 1st and goes through September of 25. It started September 1st, 2023, goes to September 24. That's the fiscal year 2024. But the numbers, Eric, for the last 4 months have been staggering. You're talking a million, close to 2 million illegals that have come across the southern border. And we've talked about the northern border. I was talking to my brother here recently, and me and him were discussing this, and when I looked at him and I said, well, our attention is on the southern border, not the northern, and he looked at me and he said, I don't ever hear anybody talk about the northern border. You have. And I think people need to realize that this threat is existential on both the north and the south, certainly from the south. But, Eric, nobody's paying attention to the north, and these people are coming in across the north just like they are the south. And it's dangerous because, again, the very people we're talking about tonight are coming in here. And I just think they're waiting for a signal from somewhere where that signal is coming from, I can't really put my finger on it, but I guarantee you that there are elements and cells in this country that are waiting for word. And when that happens, brother, look, we are at World War III, bro. It's here at the door. It's no longer across the ocean. And that guy in Omaha, Nebraska that you talked about, it's going to affect him and his family and every single individual listening to our voices tonight on this network. That is when this will get real to the United States of America.
Yeah, and I feel bad for our first responders, police officers, local police, state police, who have to deal with these criminals and terror groups because they're outnumbered, clearly. And so who's going to respond to a terror attack? The first responders are locals. And, they're not prepared to take down a terrorist with an RPG or other high-powered weapons. And so these poor police officers will be the first to encounter
That's true.
these future terror attacks in America.
Not to interrupt you, but I got a question for you. It's a little weird. Do you think that they're targeting these smaller cities instead of the big metropolis? Because, everybody's got their attention on these bigger metropolis cities like Boston, New York, Chicago, L.A., Atlanta, even Miami maybe. Do you think that the strategy for these terrorists have changed, that they're looking more at these softer targets and in these smaller towns? I just think that these smaller towns should be more alert than even the bigger cities tonight.
You think? 100%. Yeah. You're thinking like a criminal. You're thinking like a terrorist. That's how they think, Chris. I mean, they're wondering, okay, where do I get my biggest bang for my buck, and where are they soft? And so, put the map of the USA up and look. Listen, these terror groups and state sponsors of terror, such as the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, they have hundreds of intelligence officials scattered throughout the world. They have support people who are helping them select targets and research and recon the targets. So you're absolutely right. Someplace, pick a country, I don't know, pick a state and pick a small city in a state. Like here I am in Massachusetts right now. Instead of Boston, I'd pick Plymouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Where the pilgrims came ashore and our country began. What better target than that?
Well, and not only that, but you mentioned the police, Eric. There's nothing against smaller towns. Look, I grew up in a small town, and I understand these are good blue collar people that again, hardworking, family oriented, value kind of people out in the rural countries. Even in the most bluest of states, if you get out in the rural areas and the country areas, that is what kind of people you're dealing with. But these police forces, you said it, and this is something that we don't talk about. They're very inadequately ready should something like this happen on a grand scale. Most police departments, this is the least of their worries right now, because you know what they're concentrating on, Eric? They're having to concentrate on the freaking illegal influx of illegal aliens DUIing and killing and raping and murdering their citizens. In the good old U.S. of A., we got our attention on that, and these terrorists are building their arsenal up, getting ready to hit us in the face. And again, I'm not even blaming the police for that, brother. It's just the state of affairs we're in tonight. That's what makes the world dangerous. It's what makes the United States, America, dangerous. And Cedric's comment, what should we do? I don't know if there's an answer to that right now. We need to be switched on. I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, we looked at, just look at locally, God, and it was a terrible incident in Texas. The Valdi school in Texas.
Yes.
We had one shooter.
Yes.
How long did the police wait to go in? Because for whatever reason, they had handguns, they had shotguns, what have you. They handled that, obviously, situation terribly. But, what would they do if there was 3 terrorists in there with hand grenades?
Great question. What do you do? I mean, great question. But again, they're not trained to do that right now.
No.
They're not even thinking those terms because our country's, and I hate to say this, and it's not a scold, it's not a slap at our nation, but most people are more concerned about who wins American Idol and who wins the Grammys tomorrow night and who wins the Oscars and what's the latest fad on Instagram, what's the latest fad on Facebook, and what's the latest fad in my personal Instagram account, and what somebody's having for dinner, or what this, that, and all this crap's out there, because most people are more consumed with that than worrying about the things that really matter ultimately on a grander scale eternally, and that's the freaking safety of the United States of America and the safety of their families, and realizing we've got a threat, an exponential threat, Eric, that is happening underneath our nose, in front of our eyes, every day, every minute, and we're just like a bunch of zombies that has been paralyzed by entertainment, paralyzed by sports. Look, I'm a sports person, Eric. I love these things. But my attention is not on that right now. My attention on this network right now is getting people to be made aware that we're living in dangerous times and we are on the brink of World War freaking III.
Yeah, I'm going to say we're in the beginning stages of World War III, Chris, because of what I outlined in the Middle East and what I outlined in Europe with Russia and Ukraine, and what I talked about with the 21 shadow wars going on in Africa in 21 different countries with our special operators and our CIA who are hunting down and exterminating, if you will, bad guys, Muslim extremists who want to take over Africa if we allow it to happen. So we are in the beginning stages of a World War III. I can say it. The White House will never say it, but I don't want people to be fooled. We are in the beginning stages of it, and that's why border security, Chris, is more important than ever. I've seen them, so you don't have to see them, Chris, but I've seen in the last month horrific executions in Sudan. 6 kids gunned down in cold blood as they were standing speaking to terrorists. I've seen other torture cases of women being slaughtered as well. And so if we don't have a strong border, we have a weak border. Those people, again, who commit those heinous acts of terror on citizens throughout the globe, you don't think they would come here if they knew they could just walk in?
Of course they would, Eric. Of course.
And so do we want these Sudan terrorists who are slaughtering thousands, Chris, of people, the ability to just walk in?
Yeah.
And say what? I'm from, I don't know, pick another country. I'm from South Africa.
Well, that's where our friend Balding is down there right now. He's trying to fight for democracy, Eric, and there's forces that are literally trying to kill the man in cold blood himself. I mean, these people are dangerous. And I was going to ask you, you sort of answered it before I even asked it, about Africa, where was some of the hot spots. I know Sudan is one, but what are some other nations that we need to watch for that are out there tonight that are hotbeds? I know Sudan definitely is one.
Well, Sudan, of course, is in the mix of this war. We got 2 generals, 2 Muslim extremist generals, who are slaughtering hundreds of thousands of people, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see the protests. I don't see Washington jumping on, and I don't know.
We're not even hearing about it, Eric. We're not even hearing about stuff like that, though. Our media is absolutely silent. They have gone on blackout. We don't. You're the only person that tells me that tonight. That this network is the only one saying that. Nobody's saying that.
Well, we're talking about what? We want to talk about Russia and Ukraine. Exactly Ukraine, right. Russia. We don't want to talk about Africa. I don't know why. It doesn't fit the agenda, I guess. But these are black, dirt poor people scattered throughout Africa. I think there's 50 some odd countries in Africa. I'm sorry, 51 countries in Africa. Could be 54. Most of them are black people and poor, women, children who are being starved to death by Muslim extremists, especially in Sudan, in South Sudan, Mali, Chad. The list goes on and on and on and on.
How about
Chris?
Nigeria? I've heard some terrible things about Nigeria lately.
Of course, Nigeria is. We're talking 9,000 kids missing last year alone. We're talking in Uganda and the Congo. What the Ivory Coast. It goes on and on and on, Chris. I mean, these countries, East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, those countries are all on fire. But this White House is being led by, God, I don't even know. He's suffering, and it's sad that his wife and government officials around him don't say, "Hey, Joe, Uncle Joe, it's time for you to take off, step off the stage and let someone else."
Well, I'm glad you said that. We got about 10 minutes. I want to just say this to the audience. If you got a question for Eric, real quick, we'll take a few questions before we let him go tonight. I do want to ask you before we wrap this up tonight, buddy. First question is, where does Israel stand in all this at this point? Where do you think the Israeli-Hamas conflict is going to play into all this stuff? And the second question is a political question. You mentioned in Joe. Do you think the Democrats are going to pull the plug on his run? I mean, he won 99% of the vote in South Carolina yesterday in their primary. I mean, he won 99% to 1, man. I mean, they're all in on Grandpa Joe, bro.
Yeah, I think here's my thing. I think they're all in. They're not going to, as it stands right now. Unless something tragic happens to the man, like he ends up on a respirator.
Right.
He's going to be the nominee.
Okay.
I think it's too late. I mean, could anything happen tomorrow? Sure, but I think each day passes us, we get closer and closer to November. The Democrat Party will not pull the plug.
Okay.
I really think they got too much invested in Joe right now. And
are you confident the election system has been fixed, or the election process has been fixed, not to have a repeat of what we had in 2020?
God, I really don't have the answer to that, brother. I wish I could tell you. I mean, look at the states and cities and towns, on the East Coast, West Coast, led by politicians who care more about their election or the election of Joe Biden than the rule of law. I mean, we see open borders. We know that you've asked me this question before, Eric. Why are the politicians just turning a blind eye? And I said it's just for votes. I said that probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And I think people are like, really? They would put their election or the party first before the security of the nation?
Oh yeah,
yes,
they would. Oh
yes.
Yeah, absolutely they would. That's a softball question right there. If you got a question for Eric, folks, we got him just for a few more minutes. I'll say this: the one of the statements that were made earlier, which was, they're saying the Super Bowl this coming Sunday is another distraction. I hope the security there is shored up.
Yeah,
and I do too. But again, Eric, that the Super Bowl. Look, I'm a football fan. I love football. I love baseball. I love sports. But it does seem that we're just consumed with these distractions, and I think that word distraction is a great word because we are consumed with the distractions around us, and we better. I think all of us tonight, and I'm speaking to myself. We need to sort of take a hard look in the mirror and see what we're concerned about tonight and where our focus is, because, brother, what we're talking about tonight is life and death. This is the future, the future of the nation's existence. I mean, I know that sounds sort of melodramatic, but I don't think it is, Eric. The existence of the United States of America is absolutely at stake in a way it's never been at stake in my lifetime that I can remember. And look, I know there's
Chris,
been
just
some
as
tough
an example, not to cut you off, Chris.
Go ahead.
Just as an example, the Israeli-Gaza attack in October.
Yes.
If you don't think they would have stopped killing you're foolish. They would have gone all the way to Israel and to the capital if they could have.
Absolutely, they would have
killed thousands. I mean, look what they did to these poor people: tortured and killed and raped and executed babies and children, adults, and I mean, it goes on and on and on. So, yeah, America better wake up, because it's coming here. It's coming here, and it pains me every day when I see people who are getting killed by criminals who aren't supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Illegal aliens. I mean, every day across this country, Americans are dying, not at the hands of a terrorist, but our own public officials.
Our own public officials, Eric, absolutely. Well,
Emmelina's got a blind eye.
Yeah, Emmelina's got a good question. She says, "Do you believe that we have any chance for Trump to drain some of the swamp, at least?" And I have to tell you, the way I answer this, I know this don't draw me a lot of fans, but Trump had a chance to drain the swamp the first 4 years, and he didn't do it. And I know that he probably was a little in over his head maybe at the beginning, but when he found out what the swamp was, he had 2 years to do it, and he still didn't do it. So do I think we have a chance for it? Slight, but I think that he's showing now even that, I don't know. I don't hold out a lot of hope for that, because you can't drain the swamp and put swamp right back in its place, and that's what he did. And, I mean, look, I hope he's learned his lesson, and I hope for the best, but I don't have a lot of faith in that. What's your thoughts on that? It's a good question, but I don't have a lot of faith in that.
He's recently spoke about that, and why he did or didn't do the firing of officials.
Yeah.
And I think his answer was basically, he relied on others to assist him and helping making some of those decisions. And you have to keep in mind, I mean, we're talking hundreds of very, very senior positions in the White House, in the national security staff, and dozens of agencies. So it's a huge, if you will, elephant to get your hands around.
It is
the federal government.
It is.
So
well,
I think he's learned. I think he's learned his lesson, that he's going to have to vet carefully any potential senior officials in his administration, and surround himself with people he can trust, because Washington is a swamp. You saw Chris Christie.
Buddy, absolutely. Well, listen, I got a great statement from Amy Miller I want to read here after I say this, but I'm not trying to diminish President Trump. Look, I'm voting for him. I believe he's got the right ideas and the right policies. My question is the people around him, will they allow him to do that? And that's what happened last time. He put people around him that betrayed him, Eric. And I'm with you. I hope he learned his lesson. I really do. I really do. I want to read Amy Miller's statement. It's a great one. It's good to see Amy tonight. She says, from a spiritual sense, I understand we're living in the end times. From a natural sense, what do the government leaders gain? By giving our country away, they already have our money. They already have the power. Do they really believe another country will look out for their interests when everything is lost? It's insane. Eric, that sums up your theory about SwitchedOnLife.com, baby. I mean, it's like her statement is right on target. I mean, it is insane, but what do they really believe? Another country, nobody's going to look out for our interests but the United States, but we're doing this to ourselves, bro. We're self-inflicting these wounds on ourselves.
Well, as you remember on my website, Chris, under the Caron Chronicles, I wrote an article, Operation Russian Roulette, a few years ago. Operation Russian Roulette, and it basically says we're killing ourselves. These are self-inflicted, deadly wounds that we are doing to ourselves. Be it the whole LGBTQ, BLM, be it open borders, be it trade with our adversaries like Iran and other nations that we should not be trading with. I mean, so these are self-inflicted wounds that we are doing to ourselves. And we, unfortunately, it saddens me to say, Chris, we are no longer the superpower you mentioned America's still the superpower. I'm sorry to say, based on what I know in my travels, we are no longer the superpower of the world.
Who is? China?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, you know that they've come out with BRICS, and it stands for...
Yes.
What does it stand for? You can Google it. Actually, I might have it. Hold on.
While you're Googling that, let me ask you a question. Corey Aguilar has got a great question. Where's the oversight? She says, how can billions be going to our enemies? What are we getting in return? We're basically getting the middle finger. You know, that punk kid that walked down the streets of New York with his middle finger up last week, beating the hell out of the cops, and then they put him out without bail, took off to California. Yeah. Pretty much the other countries of the world doing to us what that kid was doing to the cops, putting his middle finger up and not being ashamed about it. So that's what we get in return for the billions to our enemies.
I'll chime in that for one. Give me 1 second. But BRIC stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates.
Wow.
So this is a coalition of these major populated countries, and Russia and China, both armed with nuclear weapons, and so yeah, they're coming together, those countries, and forming an alliance that is dwarfs our population, our military capability, and they want to trade with one another. They want to partner with one another, and America is still in, I don't know what gear we're in, first gear with this administration. So we're no longer the superpower, for sure. I mean, it saddens me, but we are not the superpower we once were.
Yeah. Couple more questions for you real quick, because we got to wrap this up.
I was going to answer the question related to the point that the other gentleman
Corey
made. And get you off speaker. Well, he makes a valid point. All this money, where is it going, and who's using it? And are they using it for the right intended purposes? And so anybody, I really hope that people tonight can take 10 minutes to go to the Special Inspector General for Afghan Reconstruction. They've been doing this for about 20, 25 years. It's the auditors, if you will. I've worked with them when I was in Dubai, and they're supposed to oversee the contracts and money the U.S. government gives Afghanistan. And would you believe, a few months back, for the first time, the Special Inspector General reported to Congress that the administration was not cooperating with the Office of Inspector General for Afghan Reconstruction in providing aid numbers.
Yeah.
How much money? The State Department refused to cooperate, and the Treasury Department refused to cooperate. First time ever. So yeah, the Biden administration, they surely does. They don't want the American people to know that we continue to support a terror organization called the Taliban with billions of dollars.
You're right. And we've got the website referencing that in Facebook tonight. A couple of quick questions. We've got to wrap this up. Mary Cleveland's got a political question for you. Do you think that they replace Kamala with Newsom and he's the heir apparent to the throne once Biden steps aside? Real quick.
No, I'd say no.
Okay, I don't believe that. I don't think it's too late. If they were going to do that, they would have done it last year. And one other thing, Jay Morris, great statement here, and I'll let you chime in on it. The big cities, he said, won't kick and scream so loudly about illegal immigration as long as the grant money keeps coming. Jay makes an excellent point. Money is the thing that drives illegal aliens, Eric, and he's got an excellent point, Jay, that is absolutely square on target. This money, it just pimps out. It's like a political whores that they are. They are pimping out the country for the highest bidder, and the American public is suffering because of it, because the grant money does come in. And I was driving around my city here last week, and there was a Catholic church, these Catholic charities, and it had a big sign out there that said illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, welcome here. Or they put immigrants. Nice. They never put illegals. So they always frame it as immigrants. No, they're illegal freaking aliens. They're crooks, criminals, lawless folks to begin with. But they're welcome in our church. And when that grant money dries up, then you would see a change. Jay's point is on target. I'll let you wrap us up. 5 minutes on that one.
Yeah, no. The Catholic charities should be ashamed of themselves. They're aiding and abetting, just like the Biden crime family's doing, aiding and abetting these illegal aliens, terrorists, to come in and kill Americans. So shame on the Catholic Church. As a Christian, as a Catholic, I say that. And any other organization that harbors illegal aliens. I arrested 361, myself and others at my direction, 360 illegal aliens in 2008 at a U.S. defense contractor in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And, where does it stop? I mean, it's not stopping. It's even getting worse by the day. And one illegal alien is too many when he kills your mother, your father, your brother, your sister.
Come on, buddy. Come on.
So one, and all these numbers, I just shake my head every day, Chris, and I hear the talking heads and others, $1 million this month, and 6 million in the last 6 months, and 10 million in the last year. And I mean, one is too many when your father's dead.
Come on, buddy.
Because some illegal alien is drunk, or he's high on drugs and he breaks into your house and he rapes and kills your daughter.
Yeah.
One is too many. So stop. That's what gives, I know the numbers are great. They're great sound bites. Hey, to date, 11 million people have crossed into America and 6 million got away. We have no idea. We don't even look at shipping containers that come into America, Chris. All you and I have talked about was the land border or the airport. No one's talking about who the hell's looking into these 55 million plus containers that come into America. Who looks at those, making sure there's no illegal aliens in there? We got big problems in America, Chris, and we got to get switched on. That's why people got to get the Switched On Life.
SwitchedOnLife.com, man. Hey, buddy, been a great show tonight. We're going to get you back on video soon, but I wanted to just get you on. I'm so grateful you're back home safe from Davos.
Thank you.
Listen, stay in touch with me, and we'll be in touch soon. And thank you for a great, great, great hour with me tonight. As always, Eric, Caron. And we'll be in touch soon, my friend. God bless.
God bless, and stay switched on, folks. I love you.
Eric, you too, buddy. Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Eric, Caron, everybody, put some fire in that house for him. Thank you all for being with us tonight. And if you love what Eric said, put some fire out there. And we're grateful for you. And so forth. And looks like we are streaming. I'm not sure what... somebody saying we're not on anymore. Yeah, we're here. We're here, Lori. I'm not sure what you're talking about. We're still here. But I just want to say that we're grateful for Eric. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show. And we'll be back here tomorrow night about the same time with Brad Johnson. He's not been on in a while, and he's going to be with me tomorrow night. We're going to pick this conversation up and talk about the country and the world. Brad will have a little bit more political insight to some things that's going on in D.C. with us. Wednesday night, we got Marcia Montenegro coming. Thursday, we're not sure who we're going to have, but we'll have a week full of shows, and then our next face show will be Wednesday night. Wednesday night, we'll be announcing the location of our Jacksonville Prophecy Conference coming up February the 16th and 17th, and we'll have all the details for that then. And we hope that you'll join us then. What a great night. Guys, I want to thank you all for being with us. Y'all had a some great questions out there, great statements. And we thank you all for the comments and reacting. And good to see Miss Ricky Wilson in the house tonight. I hope she's doing better. And we're going to have Ricky next week. Ricky was supposed to be here tonight. I'm glad she showed up. She was supposed to be here, but she's under the weather. But have no fear. She'll be back with us next Monday night. And we're grateful for her and her family, and just continue to pray for her and all. I do encourage you to go to Eric's website, switchedonlife.com. He's got a lot of great articles there, and he's always my go-to buddy when we talk about things in the Middle East and things of this nature. We've got some new guests coming. We've got Sheriff Mack in Texas. Dan Glovac is trying to set us up with him. He's a border sheriff along the southern border. He's coming in about 2 weeks. And then we've got a gentleman that Dan Gilbert, who is in charge of church security across America, and he's got some thoughts about how dangerous it is right now to worship on Sunday. And he's speaking strictly from a standpoint of some of these shootings that we've had in the past 5 or 6 years across the country, and he's given seminars on that, and he's got some thoughts as to what's coming. And so we got some new blood coming onto the network here soon, and we're grateful for them. And we're grateful for you tonight, folks. Just let us know if you got any questions, McFilesForum@gmail.com. And thank you all for being with us tonight. Great questions. We appreciate you all very much. If you like the content, you can see how to donate to us up at the top right tonight. And we will see you tomorrow night, same time, around 8 o'clock, with our dear friend Brad Johnson. Brad always is on fire. Now, he's been sick the last 2 times. He stood me up, so he owes me a jam-up interview. I told him if he doesn't knock the socks off you folks tomorrow night, he's fired after what he's done. But he got sick twice in a row, and I can't tell you exactly what he said in response, because this is a family network still. So I'll let him explain what happened, and him and Elvis will explain in their own kind way what happened to him last time and the time before. Listen, until then, McDonald out on a Monday night. Have a good night, everybody. Be blessed out there. Be safe. Pray for your country. Pray for each other. See you tomorrow. Good night.
It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk. It makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. It's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds and the ink stains that have dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory. That keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the rocks and ivy painted on their columns now that bind me. Or something that somebody said because they thought we fit together walking. It's not knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving when I walk around the railroad track and find that you're moving on the back roads by the rivers of my memory, and hours you're just gentle on my mind. Though the wheat fields and the clotheslines and the junkyards and the highways come between us, and some other woman's crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone, I still might run in silence, tears of joy might stain my face, and the summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you walking on the back roads by the rivers flowing gentle on my mind. I dip my cup of soup back from a gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard. My beard a rustling towel and a dirty hat pulled low across my face. Through cup hands round the tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waiting from the back roads by the rivers of my memories, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind.